There's a version of winning we've all been shown. The loud kind. The spotlight moment. The moment when the hands clap and the cameras flash, and the proof arrives that you've made it, that all the work was worth it. This version is noisy and certain. It lives in trophies, finish lines, accolades, and the affirmation of others. It's what we're told to chase, what we measure ourselves against. But that's not the kind of winning this is about. This is for the ones who feel like they're losing, who show up each day to a life that isn't quite unfolding the way they hoped it would. The ones who are tired of pretending it's fine, of putting on the face that says I'm okay, when inside they feel anything but okay. This is for you, walking through uncertainty with your heart in pieces, still trying to move forward, quietly, without applause, without guarantees, because there is another kind of winning. It doesn't arrive in a single moment. It's not flashy. It doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to stay, to keep breathing, to keep loving, to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even when the ground beneath you feels like it's made of glass. It's the winning that happens in the dark, the kind no one sees. You may not know it yet, but just by choosing to be here, reading this, you are already winning. Because it takes courage to face your own mind. It takes strength to look at your life, not through the lens of judgment, but with quiet, radical honesty. It takes something deep and unwavering to say, I don't feel like I'm winning, but I'm not giving up on myself. Think of a seed in the earth, buried, surrounded by soil, darkness, pressure. There's no sign of growth above the surface. No flowers, no leaves, no light. But deep below, something sacred is happening. The seed is changing. It's forming roots, anchoring, gathering strength in silence. It's not blooming yet, but it's not still, not dead, not failing. It's preparing. That is where you might be, in that space of deep preparation, in the tension between what is and what could be. And while the world might not see it, while you might not feel it, that inner anchoring, that quiet persistence, is the essence of winning. It's easy to believe that winning is something you earn only after all the pain is over. But what if that's wrong? What if the very act of continuing through the pain is itself a victory? What if feeling lost and still choosing not to abandon yourself, not to silence your hope, is the highest form of courage? This is not a book that will teach you how to hustle harder. It won't tell you to fake confidence or chase an ideal that doesn't fit your soul. It won't promise that everything will turn out exactly as you hope. But it will invite you to meet yourself differently, to see your struggle not as a sign that you're failing, but as proof that you are still trying, still in motion, still alive with the possibility of becoming. You are not here to impress the world. You are here to become the most honest version of yourself. And that version may not always look like the picture of success the world offers. It may look like getting out of bed on a day when your heart is heavy. It may look like forgiving yourself for not being further along. It may look like choosing rest over self-punishment, softness over striving, quiet resilience over noise. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are in process. And process is not a punishment. It is a path. Every winner you admire once stood exactly where you are, in the in-between, in the fog, in the space where nothing made sense and everything felt like too much. What separated them from giving up wasn't a burst of motivation or a lightning bolt of clarity. It was the simple, unglamorous decision to stay with themselves, to keep going, to keep thinking like someone who still believes they're worth fighting for. And that's what this is really about. It's about reclaiming your relationship with yourself, learning to hear the voice of doubt and not let it drown you, learning to walk with fear but not follow it, learning to make peace with where you are while staying open to where you're going. Winning, in its truest form, is not about outcomes. It's about identity. It's about who you decide to be when things don't go your way. It's about how you treat yourself when the lights are off and the doors are closed and no one's watching. It's about grace, the kind you give to yourself, not because you've done everything right, but because you know you are still growing, still blooming, still becoming. You may feel like you're in the dark, but so is the seed. And the dark is not the end. It's the beginning. It's where the roots grow deep enough to hold what's coming. So, if you're tired, come sit here a while. If you're unsure, stay anyway. Let these words be a hand on your shoulder, a soft reminder that you're not alone in the in-between. You are not behind. You are on your way. Let's begin where all true growth begins, in the quiet, in the dark, in the place where no one sees the effort but you make it anyway. You've already taken the first step. You're not losing. You're learning how to rise in a new way. And that's what it means to think like a winner, even here, even now. How they learn to be with their internal climate without letting it steer the ship. It's easy to think that in order to be a winner, you have to always feel confident, motivated, certain. But that's not how it works. The truth is far less glamorous and far more human. Winners often feel just as overwhelmed, unsure, and afraid as anyone else. They simply make a different choice about how to respond. You can't always control the thoughts that arise or the emotions that pass through. They're like weather, sudden, surprising, sometimes lasting longer than expected. But like any weather, they don't stay forever. And while you can't always change the storm, you can choose how you'll stand in the rain. You don't have to feel like a winner to think like one. That line, let it settle. It's not just a thought, it's a shift, a loosening of the grip that says, I'll only be okay once I feel better. Sometimes you won't feel better, not right away, but you can still move differently. You can still act from a deeper place than your surface emotions. Imagine standing at a window, watching the rain. You don't scream at the clouds to disappear. You don't beg the thunder to stop. You acknowledge it. You let it pass. You make tea. You put on a sweater. You stay warm in your own way. This is what it means to manage your emotional weather. Not to fight it, but to learn how to live well inside it. The climate of a winner isn't about sunshine all the time. It's about emotional fluency, the ability to name what's present without collapsing under it, the capacity to say, this hurts, but I can keep going. It's about being honest with your feelings while refusing to let them define you. A winner's mind doesn't wait for the perfect mood to take action. It shows up anyway. It learns to create space between stimulus and response. It learns that disappointment isn't a signal to give up. It's an invitation to dig deeper, to anchor more firmly in values rather than feelings. There's something radical in deciding not to let your worst moments speak for your whole life. And this is where your power lives. In that subtle decision to stay kind, to stay grounded, to keep trying, even when it's hard to believe that any of it will work out. Your thoughts will whisper things. You're not good enough. What's the point? Others are ahead. These whispers are echoes of old wounds, not truth. Learning to think like a winner means hearing the voice of self-doubt without mistaking it for wisdom. It means catching the storm before it floods your foundation. You can start by simply noticing. When a thought arises, pause. Ask, is this useful? Is this true? Is this the voice of possibility or fear? This moment of pause is powerful. It puts you back in the driver's seat. It helps you remember. Thoughts are not commands. Emotions are not prophecies. They are experiences. They come. They go. Winners train for this, not in the gym or on a stage, but in the quiet of their own minds. They build a practice of inner awareness. They learn to recognize when they're slipping into scarcity, shame, or self-sabotage, and gently reroute. And the word is gently. There's no need for violence inside. No need to scream at yourself to be better, faster, stronger. Compassion works better. It softens the terrain. It gives you room to breathe and choose again. Choosing how you respond, even when things are going wrong, that's the secret most people miss. When you've just failed, when your heart is tired, when nothing makes sense, that is when the practice becomes real. Can you speak to yourself like someone worth loving? Can you show up for your goals even when you're not sure they'll pan out? It's not about forcing positivity. It's about nurturing resilience. That quiet inner knowing that says, this isn't the end. It's just a page in the chapter. There's a reason so many great thinkers, creators, and leaders talk about failure with reverence. Because failure shows you the weather inside. It reveals the gaps in your roof, the strength of your foundation. It gives you the gift of seeing who you really are when things fall apart. You can learn to become a safe place for yourself, a calm harbor, a space where all emotions are allowed but none are in charge. Even now you might feel tired, heavy, frustrated. That's okay. Winning doesn't mean bypassing those feelings. It means carrying them with care and still doing the next right thing. So if the clouds are heavy today, don't panic. If the motivation's gone quiet, don't assume it's forever. Feel what you need to feel. And then, when you're ready, take the smallest next step. That's how you think like a winner. One step at a time, even in the rain. You don't have to feel like a winner to think like one. You just have to choose who you want to be, moment by moment. Not in the absence of struggle, but inside it. That choice is yours. It always has been. Somewhere first, collecting things that prove our worth, being seen in a certain light. And so we run, hard, fast, without question. But maybe you've noticed, sometimes the more you run, the more hollow it feels. Like chasing wind, like arriving at a place that looked glittering from afar, only to realize it doesn't taste like joy. Just pressure, just fatigue, just the fear of falling behind again. Releasing the old definition of winning is not a failure. It's a return, a quiet revolution, a brave decision to stop measuring your life with someone else's ruler. You can step off the racetrack. There is a forest path waiting for you. Soft earth, wildflowers, uneven steps. No crowds to cheer, no podiums. Just the rhythm of your breath and the sound of your own footsteps. It's not glamorous, but it's real, and it's yours. Letting go of external measures doesn't mean you no longer strive. It means you begin to strive from a place of truth, not performance. You start to ask different questions. Not, what will make me look successful? But, what feels like peace to me? Not, how can I win faster? But, what am I running toward, and why? This shift is subtle, but powerful. It takes courage to walk away from the scoreboard, to stop living for validation, to release timelines that were never yours to begin with. But in that release, you create space for breath, for clarity, for actual joy. There is no universal deadline, no exact age you must arrive, no checklist that will finally declare you've made it. That illusion only steals your energy. Your journey is not late. It's not broken. It's simply yours. When you own your own pace, your rhythm, your timeline, everything softens. The need to constantly compare falls away. You begin to trust the seasons of your life. Some fast, some slow, some hidden entirely underground like roots growing in silence. Winners don't always look like the world expects. Sometimes they're quiet. Sometimes they're rebuilding. Sometimes they're tending to inner wounds no one sees. But they are still winning, because they're still moving, still healing, still choosing themselves in a world that taught them not to. There is great strength in choosing the forest path. You'll meet less applause, maybe less recognition, but you'll find your breath, your grounding, your voice. You don't have to match anyone else's timeline. Let that truth sink in. There is no too late. There is no not enough. You are where you are, and from here, you get to choose. What would it feel like to move because it brings you alive, not because it checks a box? What would it feel like to define success as presence, not perfection? There's an old voice inside you. It learned early that worth comes from performance. It whispers that you need to be farther along, that everyone else has it figured out, that you're behind. That voice is not your enemy. It's just outdated. It was formed in a world of comparison and scarcity. You don't need to fight it. Just don't let it lead. You can thank it for trying to protect you, and then gently choose again. There is a new voice inside you too, one that knows better. It speaks slower, quieter. It values depth over speed. It sees the growth you've done in silence. It honors every tear you turned into a stepping stone. It does not care about applause. It cares about alignment. Releasing the old definition is not a one-time act. It's a daily practice. You will feel the urge to race again. You'll scroll and compare. You'll hear the shouts from the track. Come back, you're falling behind. And some days, you'll believe them. That's okay. You just keep coming back to your own path. One breath, one step, one small moment of remembering. You are not late. You are growing, and growth is not a performance. No forest tree rushes its bloom because the one next to it flowered early. No mountain feels shame for standing still while the wind moves fast. Nature moves in cycles. So do you. And the most honest thing you can do is honor your own. So you redefine what winning means. Maybe today, winning looks like showing up when you didn't want to, like getting out of bed with a heavy heart, like forgiving yourself again, like being kind in the middle of your own chaos. Maybe it looks like taking a break, saying no, choosing rest, letting go of the urge to explain your slowness to people who never saw your depth. Winning now is a quiet thing, a grounded thing. Less sparkle, more soil. Less chasing, more choosing. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are simply becoming. And that will take as long as it takes. Come 20. Before long, you're no longer here. You're somewhere else entirely, trapped in a world built from questions and worry and pressure. But that doesn't mean you're broken. That doesn't mean you're failing. It simply means your mind is doing what minds are wired to do. Scan, compare, protect, plan. The real skill is not in stopping the mind. It's in learning how to return, how to gently guide yourself back to presence, again and again, without judgment. That's where strength lives. A mind trained to hold steady doesn't ignore fear. It learns to sit beside it, to breathe with it, to ask questions instead of shutting down. Fear and comparison lose their grip when you stop treating them as facts. Just because a thought arrives doesn't mean it deserves to stay. You don't need to resist your thoughts. You need to soften your response to them. Like a teacher sitting patiently with a restless student, your job isn't to yell, it's to guide. The spiral doesn't end when you scream at it. It ends when you notice it, name it, and choose not to follow it. This kind of self-awareness takes practice. It's a form of daily mental hygiene, like brushing your teeth or stretching your body. You tend to your mind not because it's weak, but because it's worthy. Because it carries the weight of your hopes, your fears, your creativity, your decisions. And a calm mind, even if it doesn't feel powerful in the moment, is the kind that carries you through. It's okay if it feels like a struggle at first. You may sit in silence only to hear louder chaos. You may try to breathe slowly and feel nothing shift, but the work is happening, even when it's subtle, even when it's imperfect. Each time you pause instead of reacting, you rewire a part of yourself. Each time you breathe instead of spiraling, you build trust with your own nervous system. Sometimes presence is not peaceful. Sometimes presence means facing what's really there, the uncertainty, the doubt, the ache of waiting. But presence gives you clarity, and clarity, even when it's hard, is always more powerful than confusion dressed as busyness. A lot of the world encourages urgency, hustle, immediate answers. But winners, the quiet kind, the grounded kind, learn the value of steadiness. They learn to hold a question without rushing to solve it. They learn to sit with discomfort without fleeing. They understand that strength is not the absence of emotion, but the ability to carry it without collapse. You begin training the mind by noticing when it wanders. You gently label where it went: fear, comparison, worry, expectation. And then you bring it back, to breathe, to feet on the floor, to hands resting in your lap, to the rhythm of this moment. Not because this moment is easy, but because it's real. And the mind thrives when anchored in what is real. You don't need hours of meditation to build this strength. You just need moments of attention, a breath before reacting, a pause before posting, a gentle reminder that you are not your thoughts. You are the one watching them. It helps to have anchors, simple words, rituals, or gestures that bring you back. Maybe it's the thought, "This too will pass." Maybe it's a cup of tea made slowly. Maybe it's a hand on your chest as you inhale. These small acts are not just routines. They are lifelines. They are proof that you know how to come home to yourself. A calm mind can feel unfamiliar if you're used to chasing thoughts. It may even feel boring at first, but give it time. Underneath the boredom is peace. Underneath the silence is guidance. When the waves of worry settle, the water clears. You begin to see the truth of things, not through panic, but through presence. Comparison has a hard time surviving in stillness. When you are truly with yourself, you're not looking sideways. You're not measuring. You're not wishing for another path. You are here, walking your own. That's when the noise fades. That's when the inner climate shifts. You start to notice that the world inside you has its own rhythm, separate from what the outside demands. You realize that joy isn't something you chase. It's something you allow when the dust settles. You remember that you are not falling behind. You're simply building something with deep roots. And that kind of building takes time, space, and stillness. A winner's mind is not always loud or confident. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's unsure. But it shows up. It returns. It keeps choosing clarity over chaos, presence over panic. That choice, made over and over again, becomes a way of thinking, a way of being. You don't need to be fearless to hold steady. You just need to be willing to pause, willing to feel, willing to return. Even if the storm comes back tomorrow, you now know the way back home. A calm mind doesn't always feel strong, but it builds strength, quietly, steadily, day by day. And that strength, it becomes the very ground you stand on. But you are not your loss. You are not the outcome of a moment. You are the one who felt it, who survived it, who stayed awake inside the heartbreak and kept breathing. You are not what you lost. You are what you learned. And more importantly, you are what you choose to become after it. Loss can be a teacher if you're willing to listen closely, not to the loud voices that scream blame or shame, but to the quiet truths underneath, the ones that say, here is where it hurt most. Here is where something needed to change. Here is what you still care about. There's wisdom buried in the rubble. Not every piece is worth saving, but some of it shines. And your job is to sift carefully, not to pretend it didn't fall apart, but to ask what might still be built from what remains. The first instinct after loss is often self-judgment. You replay what you could have done differently. You search for the moment you slipped, as if finding it might give you back what's gone. But healing isn't about finding the moment it broke. It's about discovering the moment you decide not to let it break you. That decision doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be triumphant. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed when you don't want to. Sometimes it's being kind to yourself when everything in you feels disappointed. Sometimes it's choosing to try again, even if your hands are still shaking. You are not weak because you feel it deeply. You are not behind because you needed time to grieve. Real strength isn't about being unaffected. It's about being honest and still holding yourself gently in the truth. It's about letting pain visit, but not letting it move in. It's about not giving your whole identity to a single chapter. You can honor the loss without worshiping it. You can acknowledge what didn't work and still believe something else will. Just because one path closed doesn't mean your journey ended. It just means you're being invited to look again, to turn toward a part of yourself you maybe hadn't seen clearly before. That turning, that inward gaze, is where growth begins. It's important to separate your worth from the outcome. You are not only valuable when things go well, you are not only lovable when you succeed. If anything, the version of you that shows up in the hard times is the truest version. The one who feels everything but still doesn't give up. The one who sits with the pieces and slowly, quietly, begins to rebuild. You don't need to rush that process. Healing isn't a race, it's a rhythm. Some days you move forward. Some days you sit still. Some days you feel the sharpness all over again. That's okay. Nothing is linear. Not grief, not growth, not life. You're allowed to circle back. You're allowed to feel tired. You're allowed to take your time. And while the world often celebrates the bounce back, the comeback story, it's the slow, steady return to yourself that really matters. Not the part where you prove anything to anyone else, but the part where you quietly reclaim your own heart, where you remind yourself, I'm still here, I'm still worthy, I'm still becoming. There's a kind of freedom in realizing that even in loss, you get to choose. You get to choose what meaning you give it. You get to choose how you speak to yourself about it. You get to choose whether it becomes a wall or a window. And no one, not even the voice in your head, can take that from you. Think of it like sifting through rubble after a storm. There are things that are broken, yes, but there are also things that withstood the wind. Things that matter, things that shine. Maybe it's your resilience, your creativity, your ability to love despite the risk. Maybe it's your honesty, your kindness, your courage to keep dreaming. Those things survive, those things rise. And when you find them, those shining pieces, you begin again. Not from scratch, but from wisdom. Not as someone who has never fallen, but as someone who now knows the shape of the ground and how to get back up. You don't need to forget the loss to move forward. You just need to stop letting it speak for your future. You are more than what you didn't get. You are more than what ended. You are what you do next. And that next step can be quiet. It can be slow, but it counts. So take the wisdom, not the wound. Let what hurt also teach. Let what broke also bless. Let what ended also open a new beginning. Loss will visit all of us. It's part of being human. But letting it define you, that part is optional. That part is yours to decide. And you, quietly with grace, are choosing to rise. It isn't about becoming someone who never struggles. It's about becoming someone who learns how to rest without quitting. Someone who knows when to pause, when to breathe, when to be still, but never loses touch with the thread that keeps pulling them forward. You don't need to be fearless to keep going. You just need to move with love. Love for your future self. Love for the life you haven't seen yet. Love for the dream that flickers even when everything else feels dim. Fear can come along for the walk. It can whisper, question, and tremble. But it doesn't get to decide your direction. Love does. There will be days when it feels like nothing is changing, when your effort seems invisible, when the world moves faster than your legs can carry you. And that's when endurance is born, not in the obvious wins, but in the silent moments where you continue anyway. When you keep writing even if no one's reading. When you keep trying even after disappointment. When you keep believing just enough to take one more step. Persistence is often mistaken for pushing, but true persistence is more tender than force. It adjusts. It listens. It learns. It says, maybe this way isn't working. Let's try another. It knows that staying still doesn't mean you failed. It might mean you're growing roots, gathering strength, letting something within you settle before it begins again. The person who keeps going learns how to hold contradiction, to feel discouraged and still hopeful, to be uncertain and still faithful, to have setbacks and still believe in possibility. They don't pretend it's easy. They don't lie to themselves, but they make a home in the in-between. They find a way to keep choosing themselves even when the evidence hasn't arrived yet. Sometimes continuing doesn't look like movement. Sometimes it looks like healing, like taking a break that honors your limits, like adjusting your goals so they don't grind you down, like asking for help, not because you're weak, but because you care about your strength. There is no shame in the slow path. There is no shame in needing time. And still, you show up. You return. Maybe not with the same speed or certainty, but with presence, with care, with something deeper than motivation, devotion. A quiet promise to yourself that you will not abandon what matters just because it's difficult. That even if the road asks more of you than you thought you had, you'll find something new inside yourself each time you answer. When you look back on the version of yourself that almost gave up, you'll see someone brave. Not because they felt strong, but because they kept their heart open. They kept believing there was more to come, that what they were becoming was worth staying for. And that belief, even flickering, is what builds the future. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to doubt. Those things are part of being human. You don't need to eliminate them to move forward. You only need to stop letting them drive. Let fear sit in the back seat. Let love take the wheel. Let hope hold the map, even if the road is unfamiliar. You're allowed to not know exactly where you're going. Becoming the person who keeps going doesn't mean you always have the plan. It means you trust your capacity to meet whatever comes next. It means you believe in the version of yourself that hasn't yet arrived, but is getting closer with every step you take. If you're tired, rest. If you're discouraged, tell the truth about it. If your heart is heavy, place your hand over it and say, I'm still here. That's not weakness. That's sacred resilience. That's what endurance looks like in real time. Not a performance, but a promise. A quiet decision that your story isn't finished yet. The path of persistence is made one breath at a time, one choice at a time, one small, meaningful act at a time. You don't have to leap. You don't have to race. You just have to continue. Maybe today, that means doing one small thing that connects you back to what matters. Maybe tomorrow, it means trying again. But all of it counts. All of it becomes part of the story of someone who stayed. There's a kind of legacy you build when you refuse to give up on yourself. A quiet legacy. Not flashy, not loud, but lasting. The kind that becomes a lighthouse, not just for you, but for anyone watching. Because someone always is. Someone is watching you stay, and they're learning it's possible to stay too. So if you're here, still choosing, still breathing, still holding space for your next chapter, you're already winning. You're already becoming. Keep going. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to be without fear. You only need to remember that forward isn't always fast. Sometimes it's simply the courage to stay connected to your heart, even when the road is foggy. That's what makes you unstoppable. That's what makes you a quiet kind of strong. That's what makes you the person who keeps going, again and again, with grace. It doesn't come with certainty or clarity. It doesn't hand out guarantees. Instead, it invites trust. It asks you to keep walking without a clear view of the destination. It asks you to believe in your effort, even when there's no immediate feedback. It asks you to hold your heart steady when your mind wants to sprint toward answers that aren't ready yet. This space, the waiting, the becoming, the not yet, is not a void. It's a threshold. And crossing it means choosing presence over proof, patience over pressure. It means learning to live in the quiet while the future builds itself beneath the surface. Most of us have been taught to measure value by results. We're trained to look for visible progress, to crave the moment when things finally make sense. But what if the strength you need isn't found in outcomes, but in what you practice before they arrive? What if the real transformation happens in the pause? There's power in staying with yourself when nothing seems to be happening. Power in continuing to nourish your vision when there's no applause, no recognition, no finish line in sight. The act of staying hopeful, staying grounded, staying curious, isn't passive. It's the quiet labor of faith. There are seasons in life when everything feels suspended. You've left the old behind, but the new hasn't fully shown up. You've changed inside, but the world hasn't caught up yet. That's the in-between. It's uncomfortable because it disrupts our sense of identity and momentum. But it's also sacred because it softens us, prepares us, rewrites us in ways we couldn't access if everything came quickly. When you don't rush through it, the in-between becomes a place of quiet remembering. You remember what truly matters to you, beyond outcomes, beyond praise. You learn to find worth not in what you produce, but in how you remain aligned with what you believe. You begin to anchor your strength in something deeper than circumstance. Trusting the in-between means embracing the idea that your life is not on hold. It's unfolding, just not on a timeline you can control. Even silence can be a form of growth. Even stillness can be a part of momentum. Just because you can't see the shift doesn't mean it isn't happening. Think of the hours before sunrise. The world looks still, but it isn't stagnant. The earth is rotating. The light is rising. The birds are beginning to stir. Something is always happening in the unseen. So it is with you. Your intention is working. Your effort is echoing. You are becoming, even when you can't articulate how. It takes courage to sit in the unknown and not demand answers. It takes strength to say, I don't know where this leads, but I believe in the person I'm becoming. The in-between teaches you to listen more gently, to wait more openly, to trust more deeply. It is the space where self-trust is forged, not in certainty, but in presence. This space can also be tender. Doubt likes to visit here. So does fear. They want to convince you that the quiet means failure, that the pause means you've been forgotten. But this is where you must choose a different voice. The voice that says, keep tending, keep showing up, keep loving your process, even when it feels invisible. You don't need to fill every moment with answers. Some moments are for breathing. Some are for listening. Some are for letting the dust settle before the next chapter begins. You are allowed to be here, fully here, without needing to prove anything. The in-between is not a mistake. It's part of the design. It slows you down just enough to hear what you were too rushed to notice before. It softens you in the places that were hardened by striving. It opens your hands so you can receive, not just achieve. And when the moment does come, when clarity returns, when something shifts, when a door opens, you'll walk through it with a deeper sense of who you are. Not because you pushed harder, but because you stayed rooted. You stayed true. You didn't abandon yourself while waiting for things to change. There's a kind of peace that grows in the in-between. It's not loud or flashy. It doesn't need to announce itself. It lives in your breath. It lives in your decision to stay kind to yourself. It lives in the quiet knowing that you don't need everything to make sense right now in order to be okay. So if you find yourself in that space, where nothing feels clear, where the future feels suspended, where your next move hasn't revealed itself yet, breathe. This isn't the end. It's an unseen beginning. The hush before dawn, the stillness before movement, the soil warming before the sprout breaks through. You don't have to force your way forward. You just have to keep choosing yourself, Keep tending to what matters. Keep honoring your truth, even if the world hasn't caught up yet. This is strength too. Quiet, steady, beautifully human. And one morning, without warning, the light will come. You don't need to feel ready. You don't need to have your entire self fully convinced. You just need to move your feet in the direction of who you hope to become. And that movement, even if uncertain, even if trembling, begins to send a message to your mind. I'm doing this. I'm showing up anyway. Acting as if you already believed isn't about pretending or posturing. It's not about faking confidence or ignoring your doubts. It's about choosing to be led by a deeper part of you, the part that remembers your worth even when your thoughts forget, the part that whispers, just try, even when fear screams louder. There is a quiet kind of power in moving forward with your doubts tucked into your pocket instead of trying to banish them. It's okay to carry hesitation. It's okay to carry fear. What matters is that you carry them with awareness, not obedience. Let them come along, but don't let them steer. This practice of acting with brave feet, even when the mind is unsure, is not about force. It's about rhythm. It's about momentum. It's about building a bridge between who you are now and who you're becoming. Every small action, every decision to keep going, every moment you honor your values in motion adds strength to that bridge. You are not waiting to feel like a winner in order to act like one. You're choosing to act with heart, with integrity, with resilience, and trusting that your mindset will begin to shift as it feels the truth in your steps. You don't have to convince yourself all at once. Just begin. Belief often awakens through movement, not before it. There will be days when the gap between how you feel and what you dream of will seem wide. That's okay. Let your actions be the rope that tightens the bridge. Do the thing, say the words, show up in the way you would if you believed. Not because you're pretending, but because you're practicing. And practice is not perfection. It's repetition with intention. It's the choice to keep going even when it feels awkward or uncertain. It's learning to walk through the fog and trust that the landscape will slowly come into view with each step. Think about how children learn. They don't wait until they're confident they can walk. They try, they fall, they laugh, they cry, they try again. And slowly, their bodies teach their minds what's possible. That's how belief grows, through trial, through effort, through loving persistence. You don't have to wait until you're sure to begin. Begin unsure. Begin anyway. Begin again. Each time you act in alignment with the person you hope to become, you invite that future self closer. You create space for them to rise, to take root, to become real. This is not about pushing yourself beyond what you can handle. It's not about pretending to be someone you're not. It's about honoring the spark within you that already knows what you want, and letting that spark lead, even when the rest of you feels unsure. Think of it like lighting a candle in the dark. You may not be able to see the whole path, but you can see enough for the next step. And sometimes, that's all you need. One step, one breath, one brave moment of showing up for yourself. When you act as if you already believed, you begin to rewire your sense of self. You start building evidence that you are capable, even when it doesn't feel like it. You show your nervous system that movement is safe, that effort is allowed, that fear isn't the end of the story. The truth is, your actions write your story just as much as your thoughts. And sometimes, the story changes not because your doubts disappear, but because your steps outpace them. You can think your way in circles for years, but one courageous act can shift the entire narrative. There's a grace in allowing belief to catch up, a gentleness in knowing you don't have to force clarity. You simply have to keep honoring what matters to you, one small motion at a time. The motion itself becomes a kind of trust in your becoming, trust in the process, Trust in the quiet unfolding. Some of the most powerful things you'll ever do will be done in the presence of doubt. Not in spite of it, but alongside it. Let that be okay. Let that be enough. Let that be real. This isn't about pretending you don't feel afraid. It's about letting love guide you anyway. It's about choosing presence over paralysis. It's about asking, what would I do today if I believed in myself? And then letting the answer lead you gently into motion. Because sometimes belief doesn't knock on the door first. Sometimes it's waiting at the end of the block, and it needs to see that you're coming. So move toward it, not with force, but with faith. Not with certainty, but with sincerity. Let your feet be brave before your mind feels ready. Let your hands create before your heart is fully sure. Let yourself begin while still becoming. That's how belief is built, not in theory, but in motion. In choosing to act again and again, like the winner you are learning to see. The mind will follow, the faith will grow, and the light will meet you step by step along the way. And self-made triumph sometimes forget the truth. Even the strongest trees are held by the soil beneath them. And that soil is no accident. It's curated, it's tended, it's chosen. To think like a winner, you must begin to care for what holds you. The people you allow into your mind's quiet spaces. The practices you return to when you feel untethered. The physical places where your nervous system exhales. These things shape your resilience, your clarity, your ability to stay rooted even when winds blow hard. You don't need grand rituals, you need honest ones. A morning walk that steadies your breathing. A voice on the other end of the phone that reminds you who you are. A room where there's no need to perform. A journal that listens without interrupting. These are the small, strong things that restore your footing. Not by making you feel invincible, but by reminding you that you are supported. And support, when chosen with care, is one of the deepest forms of power. It's easy to underestimate how much your environment is speaking to you, but everything around you whispers. Some things say, rush. Others say, not enough. Some shout your failures back at you like echoes. But others, if you choose them, say, take your time. Try again. You are not behind. This is a beginning. You are allowed to be deliberate with what you allow in. The apps on your phone, the conversations you keep repeating, the people who either fan your fears or hold your hopes, the spaces that drain or replenish. Begin to notice what brings noise and what brings nourishment. Tending to your environment is not about perfection. It's about alignment. Ask yourself, does this choice bring me closer to the person I'm becoming? Or does it return me to patterns I'm trying to unlearn? That question, quietly asked, can be a compass. Sometimes curating your space means stepping back from relationships that thrive on drama, urgency, or scarcity. Not with judgment, but with love for your own becoming. It means choosing people who don't need you to pretend, who hold space without needing to fix you, who believe in your capacity without rushing your process. Other times, it's about what you bring into your inner life. The books on your shelf, the music you return to when you're unraveling, the words you tape to your mirror, the breath you take before reacting. These choices, small, often invisible, begin to form a landscape where your inner work is not only possible, but welcomed. Winners, true winners, not just in outcomes but in integrity, know this. They know their strength is not only internal, but deeply influenced by what surrounds them. And so they guard that influence with tenderness. They choose with intention. They rest with purpose. They learn to say no, not out of fear, but out of love for what they are growing. Imagine yourself as a tree, not a flashy one, but a strong, steady one. What kind of soil would you need to thrive? What kind of weather patterns could you endure? What would help you deepen your roots? Now begin to create that, bit by bit, day by day. Pull the weeds, add the nutrients, Give yourself light. Let that be your quiet power. You don't need everyone to understand your path. You don't need constant cheerleaders. But you do need safe ground. You do need things that remind you of your values when the world tries to distract you. You do need space where your softness is not mistaken for weakness, and your silence is not mistaken for absence. This isn't about control. It's about care. It's about creating a life that holds you well enough that your thoughts can breathe and your truth can rise. And when you are held in that kind of space, by your own choices, your own rituals, your own circle, your mind begins to settle. Your focus sharpens. Your doubt softens. And you begin to notice how often your power was simply waiting for peace. This is your invitation to build that peace, with the words you speak aloud, with the energy you invite in, with the practices that keep you anchored, with the boundaries that free your time and soul. You are not just surviving, you are shaping the kind of soil where resilience can grow. Because no matter how powerful your mind is, it cannot thrive in toxic conditions. Just like no seed can grow in poisoned ground. You need air. You need stillness. You need people who speak to your courage, not your fear. Let yourself choose again. Let yourself choose differently. The world doesn't get to decide what surrounds you. You do. And in that choice, over and over, you reclaim power. Quiet, deep, unshakable power. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. The kind that holds you on the days when belief feels far. The kind that whispers, "You're still becoming," when your thoughts turn to giving up. Tend to your soil. Choose your light. Build the world around you so that the world within you can breathe. That is how winners think. Not with ego, not with noise, but with care, with clarity, with quiet power that begins from the ground up and rises, strong, through every storm. Over your shoulder to compare timelines. You've released the pressure to prove, to outperform, to be there already. Because you've come to understand something sacred. The result was never the point. You were. The way you kept going. The way you softened instead of hardened. The way you rested without quitting. The way you spoke to yourself in the quiet. The way you stayed present while still believing in something more. That's what mattered. You were the shift all along. That's the truth we're not often told. The prize isn't waiting at the end. It's forming in you now, moment by moment, in how you think, how you return, how you reframe what losing even means. The real win isn't an outcome. It's the version of yourself you didn't abandon when things weren't working. You are not behind. You are in the process of becoming. Every doubt you met with compassion. Every setback you met with grace. Every failure that taught you how to breathe through discomfort instead of running from it. These were not detours. They were the path. The old version of you thought winning meant being ahead. The new version of you knows it means staying aligned. That's the rise. And you are it. This doesn't mean there won't be days when you wish for more clarity, more success, more external proof. That's human. It's okay to want. But now, you want without self-rejection. You want while honoring where you are. That is maturity. That is growth. That is winning. You don't need to fight the wind anymore. You are the steady flame in it. Quiet, alive, unshakable. You flicker sometimes, sure, but you don't go out. Not anymore. Because you've trained your mind to return, to breathe, to believe gently, without force. You've let go of urgency, not ambition. You've stopped measuring progress in numbers and started measuring it in moments. The moments you chose kindness over comparison, truth over ego, stillness over panic. That's a life worth building. That's a mind worth living in. And it keeps going. This journey doesn't end when you feel better or get the thing you've been working for. It keeps unfolding. Each version of you, braver, clearer, softer, leads to the next. Not because you're broken and need to be fixed, but because you're layered. deep, expanding. There is always more unfolding in you. And the beauty is, you get to choose how you move through it. You get to keep rising without racing. You get to define success by presence, not perfection. You get to trust your roots, even when you can't yet see the bloom. You are no longer performing for the scoreboard. You are tuning into your inner compass, and it's leading you somewhere more honest, more sustainable. Somewhere where the work is invisible to the world, but undeniable to you. That's the best kind of power, the kind no one can take because they didn't give it to you. So here's your invitation. Keep becoming. Let the journey be your teacher. Let your missteps become messages. Let your breath anchor you. Let your daily choices tell a new story. One where you are the main character, not because you win all the time, but because you keep showing up when it matters most. You are allowed to start over as many times as needed. You are allowed to be both messy and magnificent. You are allowed to want more without shaming where you are. You are allowed to stop hustling for worth and start honoring your becoming. That's the shift. That's what thinking like a winner really is. Not a mindset full of ego, but a devotion to growth, to truth, to integrity, to resilience, to love, especially when it's hard to choose. And now, you know how. You know how to hold steady when the fear spirals. You know how to listen to the whisper beneath the noise. You know how to keep going without demanding that everything feel perfect first. You know how to rise without rushing. So let this be your quiet anthem. I am not behind. I am in the process of becoming. Say it when the timeline feels off. Say it when someone else's life looks shinier. Say it when you feel like nothing's working. Say it when you're tempted to quit. Say it when you've forgotten how far you've come. Say it like a mantra, like a remembering, like a promise to yourself that you won't measure your worth by the pace of the world around you. You are becoming. You are rising. You are learning to hold joy and grief in the same hand and still move forward. You are no longer seeking a single win. You are becoming a life that wins in how it loves, how it holds space, how it sees the unseen beauty in ordinary persistence. You are the rise, not the result. And that is the real victory.